to you.
I know. Look at what a professional space I'm in right now.
I'm sorry. Are you not seeing my messy kitchen behind me? I mean, come on. I am like living the podcast dream.
We are dueling. Like, okay, well, so mine is clearly in a child's room, and you're in a messy kitchen. This
I
is
am,
perfect.
and you might hear my little pug run by and like snort, and my other dog's gonna bark because I got kicked out of my little office when my son moved back home. So it's I
Glamorous.
I have to tell you, I fell down a podcast rabbit hole listening to your podcast. I was crushing on you. I'm like, oh my God, your blog, your podcast. I mean, Brandy, I'm so happy to get to chat with you. It was so fun.
So good. So you know how I can swear and be dark, because I sometimes when I'm on people's podcasts, I was on one and she goes, "I'm really hoping to not get an explicit rating. So, do you think you could not swear?" And so then when we started the recording, I said, "I just want all the listeners to know that I have been told I'm not allowed to swear, and I cannot vouch for what's about to happen."
What? There's no fucking swearing on this podcast? What? No, you're fine. Like, go for it. I figure if we get to live in this much pain, we get to fucking swear, right? Like,
yes.
There has to be some upside, anything.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be all the time, but like if it feels right, you can't censor that. Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page on that.
We are so on the same. I kind of feel like it's like the one like valve release that you get. Like you can like just kind of like go, okay, it's not a painkiller, but it is something that releases the growl. So yes, now you get to swear on this podcast. You get to be as dark as you want on this podcast.
Okay.
I
can talk about poop and bowels.
We can talk poop, bowels. We can talk politics. We can definitely discuss parenting and chronic illness. We can discuss sex and chronic illness. We do have a sex therapist who comes on once a month to talk about sex and chronic illness. I listened to one of
those episodes. Yes, I was on a walk and I was like, oh, let me get a feel for this. And I was like, I even just the fact that there was I get so moved by the littlest things, but even the fact, I think when he was first starting to talk about it, how, with a chronic illness, like you might not feel sexy or like you have the energy to do that. I think I was like tearing up, like I feel so seen.
Oh my God. I can't tell you how many times I'm either like laughing so hard, I think I'm going to hurt a kidney, or I'm crying when I'm talking to Dr. Phillips because like, like I think even just like, let's just get back to the basics of being a human being. And you and I are both in very similar situations of being sick moms. Yeah. And just like being a mom, or even just being a person trying to move through this world as an adult, feeling sexy is often like really low on the bar. And yeah, so, and then you add on any of the, put in quotations, grossness of chronic illness and all of the absolute bullshit we have to deal with. It's like, I guess mine's like more of like cosmic horror grossness because I dislocate by moving. So if anyone wants to use their imagination on what sex is like, go for it. It is exactly what you think it's like.
Is there somebody that has a kink like that though? Like hopefully your partner, right?
I have to say my partner is probably the least kinky person ever. I used to call him Mr. Rogers when we were friends, so that gives you a general like picture into my life. But it's no, we can absolutely discuss anything you want. I went through your listen to like your first few episodes of your podcast. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fun. So let me just put a little disclaimer for everyone listening. Sure. If you find me shrill, annoying, or too political, you're gonna want to move on from this episode because I think that we are very similar in our views and what we're going to be talking about. So hey, if this is not your episode, no worries, you can move on. But I can tell you right now, I'm just gonna give you all just a general idea of what we're going to talk about. We are definitely going to be discussing sex. We're going to be discussing parenting with chronic illness. We're definitely going to be discussing the fact that you were a doula and you have I have lots of things to chat about.
Yes, okay.
So we're going to talk birth stories. We're definitely going to be discussing politics. We're so going to talk politics.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to give you all a general idea of what we're going to be talking about, that's pretty much what it's going to be. So if this isn't your thing, Eva's got 2 podcasts a month on this channel, so you can move right along. All right, anyway. So, Brandy, this is probably the longest intro ever for a podcast, but you run an incredible podcast. You are dealing with, if I understood right, I know kidney stones, but you also have like bowel resection, is that right?
Yeah, I had parts of my bowels removed when I was 16, but fun story is I didn't know that they took out these parts. I was just told like your intestines were telescoping inside one another. So I had to do this big like life-saving surgery. But then, cut to like 20 years later of having all of these mystery problems, I go back in for another colonoscopy. And this time my GI doc is like, hey, so did you know that they took out your ileum, your cecum, and your ileocecal valve? And I was like, no, those things sound kind of important. I
Okay,
don't know.
they sound important. Why are they important?
Well, not to get too much in the weeds, and some of this stuff, like my brain as a mom, and maybe as somebody with a chronic illness, like whatever I don't need to have, I just purge. So sometimes there's things like I should know the answer to that, but I've like moved it to store other data, right? Okay, so these parts, a couple of things that they do is one of them is it absorbs B12, and that's like I think the only place, I believe it's the ileum, that's the only place that gets absorbed. So no wonder I've been like tired for my whole life. But then also like one of the major things it does is when you process fats. I'm not even going to say which one it is because I know I'm going to get it wrong. But in one of those, what happens is you have bile acids that help you break down the fats, and then they get reabsorbed in, I think it's the ileum. And then your body's like, cool, this is working. But then when you don't have that part and these bile acids don't get reabsorbed, they go to your colon, and then your colon's like, what is this? Like, exit, abort, move this out. So that leads to fun, like chronic urgent diarrhea. And also, you can imagine, I mean, my friend and I were joking the other day that I have failure to thrive, that like nutrients for me are just so hard. So we were talking about people nutrient shaming me, which looks like somebody coming up to me because I weigh about 98 pounds and I'm 5'6". And I don't want to be this size. If I could have margins and have resources and nutrients, I would do it. But I have these issues. So people like to come up to me and go, "Oh my God, you're so fit. How are you so fit?" And the funny part is I don't think I look fit. I think I look pretty fucking skinny. So it's like this weird. So immediately I know somebody that says that to me like is warped and has like a warped idea of what beauty and fitness is. But anyway, so I've now gotten to the point where I tell people instead of just going like, "Oh yeah, I'm just skinny," is I say, "Well, I'm missing parts. I'm missing the parts that process fats." And then everybody starts to feel like they shouldn't have said the thing, which is right. That is the right feeling to have. My body is not for you to comment on. Even if it's positive, you may think it's positive, but now we're in a conversation about how often I shit urgently. So anyways,
I have a rule, and I just want to put it out there for everyone else to maybe take advantage of this rule. If someone cannot fix it in 5 minutes or less, you don't comment on it. So if there's a booger hanging out, you can always comment on that. If a fly is unzipped, go ahead and comment on it. But anything else that can't be fixed, no reason to actually say anything.
oh, I love that. Yes. Well, and then so there's that part, and then there's also I think that now we're talking about the cecum, and if I have them totally backwards, and somebody who knows the intestinal tract is like, this lady is an idiot, I just apologize too profusely. But there's this fun little valve that keeps the bacteria from your colon out of your small intestine. Well, apparently when they were fixing me, what was it, 25 years ago, they took that flap out. So there's a thing called SIBO or SIBO, however you want to say it, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. And it makes you nauseous and have awful poops and feel pretty terrible and give you depression and all sorts of things. So my GI doc was like, you will have that on and off your whole life because you don't have the door that blocks that.
I'm sorry, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you're just seeing my eyebrows raised. I've had that once in my life, and I've had a lot of health problems, and I've never been so ready to just be done in my life as when I had that. So that you are dealing with that over and over again is just like flooring me. I can't believe you have to go through that. That was like the worst year of my life. Like, and I've gone through a lot of bad ones. That was awful. So empathy, it's all bad. The empathy to you. Oh my God.
Well, and so I'm, all of that stuff it's like I vacillate like I would imagine a lot of people with chronic illness do. I vacillate between I'm going to find the thing, I'm going to find the foods I'm supposed to eat, and then you find yourself like maybe I just need to accept this. Like maybe I need to not fight it. So I'm always going between fighting it, fixing it, making it, finding the magic bullet, and what if I just accept this? Will it actually be better? And because of the memory thing that I told you about, I have to relearn this like every year. And I've gotten to the point where I start taking notes about like, okay, the last flare that I had, here's what I did. And then at the end of it, I will say like, the food isn't the thing. It's like when you get, because what'll happen is I'll try to follow the SIBO diet. But then what's funny is my GI doc is a vegan. So she wants me to follow a vegan diet. But then I get kidney stones because I've been chronically dehydrated for years with, constant diarrhea. Then the kidney stone diet. So I can't fucking eat anything is basically what all of these things say. And you can imagine the fun mental spiral it is to open the fridge and look at everything and go, nope, can't, nope, nope. And being somebody who's small anyway, I relearn every 6 months to a year. You just have to eat what you want to eat because the happiness that brings you and the non-micromanaging is more important than whatever thing you think is on a different diet. And then I do that until I have another episode and then repeat. So it's fun. It's really, really fun.
Do you get the, I'm just curious because I'm like this, but do you get the susceptibility to snake oil where it's like, all of a sudden, like you've been doing everything you can be to be the good chronic illness patient and do everything your doctors are saying and nothing's working. And then someone's like, well, if you just did, and then whatever that next sentence is, like I get super susceptible to that. I might have tried it 5 times before, but I'm like, oh, this time, maybe I didn't do it good enough or...
Yes. So yes, case in point. So when I'm at my lowest, I find myself, after an episode where I'm up all night in the toilet, and then this was like maybe a month ago, I thought I'd had like 6 months to 9 months that were pretty great. And then all of a sudden I could feel the SIBO symptoms. And so I thought, oh man, I've taken it too far. I've taken that eat whatever you want thing too far. I don't know what I've done. So I'm on the internet researching and I find this specific SIBO breakthrough by Dr. Amy Myers, MD, and she's like an MD and a holistic, which so that to me is already like, I love you because you realize the flaws of Western medicine, but yet you will utilize them. But so $300 later at 2 a.m, I've purchased this 30-day like cleanse thing. And I go to do it, and there's some of the herbs that are actually, I think, doing well. But I get this like 30-day supply of protein powder, so I start making it. I don't even like protein shakes, but I'm like, this is the thing I'm going to do. So it's paleo. So it's a protein shake that's made out of like cow. I don't know, but I smelled it and it smelled like, oh, that's delicious vanilla. And then the second I blended it, it smelled like vomit. And so that was that. It was like, it was done. It was started and stopped within 24 hours. So yeah, I'm susceptible to all that stuff. And then I won't think about it for a while because I'll think, you know what, not thinking about it actually makes me feel more healthy. But then there'll be something that'll come in, some new thing. Well, did I try turmeric yet? I mean, did I really try it? Did I take the right capsules? Like, yeah.
There's this like almost, please don't bother writing me about how offended you are with what I'm going to say because I don't mean to be offensive with what I'm going to say, and I'm sorry. I'm like in a world of pain. I have a completely dislocated leg, so I'm just trying to grab for the words, and it's going to be messy today. So forgive me, everyone, or don't. But it's almost like a religion of like, so you're never going to be good enough. There's always going to be like this like martyr perfection up here of like the perfect chronic illness person, and you're never going to reach it. And it's almost framed as it's your fault for not being able to reach it. Like it's your fault for not being able to follow this ridiculous diet upon diet. It's like 4 diets at once, and then taking all the supplements, and then it's like that's like already a beyond 80-hour week job, and then you add in like a life or adulting.
Kids.
Oh
if I didn't have kids, it was like I just focused on me. I mean, it would probably be awful because I would probably be even more obsessed about it. But I mean, like all of us, I have a supplement graveyard, and so it's funny because, like I said,
okay, are you able to throw them out though? I'm just curious. Like, I'm into minimalism. I know the behind me does not look like minimalism, but I'm like totally obsessed with it right now, and I still can't get myself to throw away the ones that didn't work. Are you able to?
Yes. No, not totally because what I said about I relearn every year. Oh, it's like, oh, turmeric. I didn't really give that a chance, but I actually bought that. Oh, and then I go to the graveyard and I exhume whatever supplement
Can we just have
I
a minute
need.
for like supplement zombies because
Yes.
this is
And
slaying
then
me.
I take it for a week and I don't feel any different. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why I did this. Put it back in the graveyard, exhume a year later. Like it's totally ridiculous. But I mean, I lately have been so the diet thing for me is probably one of my biggest issues is I have a GI doc and I picked her because she was a vegan. Not because I'm a vegan, but because I thought a doctor who understands that food has some part of it or who thinks out of the box at all, I want that sort of a doctor. But as you would imagine, it's like most of the time I'm there, it's talking about how I should be vegan. And then every time, well, anytime I try to go vegan, then I have other issues. So it's like you said, that never good enough. It's like I can never, when I fix something with one thing, then another thing happens. So yeah, I can be vegan, but my calorie intake is so much less. So I lose weight that I don't have to lose. So then I eat something else, and then it's like I can never quite get the balance right. So I'm just at the place where I just did this like week long boot camp for anxiety because I have anxiety related to this health stuff that trickles into other things. And when my health is good, I don't have any anxiety about it. But when it's bad, it's bad. And so one of the things that I've been learning that's kind of like blowing my mind is this idea of letting a bodily sensation come over you and just noticing it and not trying to fix it. And one of the things that they said that this therapist, it's by the guy who wrote the book Dare. It's a book about anxiety. It's so good. It's so good. But the woman that's working with him said, you know, the people who come to me who have these kind of anxieties, but I think it was specifically maybe about the health. She goes, you guys are the fighters. You're the warriors. You're the researchers. You're the type A's. You're the overthinkers. And so she goes, in a nutshell, what this DARE program is, or what trying to get rid of this anxiety is learning how to do nothing. And so that like resonated huge for me because I'm a go-getter. I'm motivated. I have ideas and I go for them. And if I can fix things, I will. And so she goes, it's the simplest thing is when your stomach feels weird, my stomach feels weird. And then you keep going. I mean, there's this whole plan that they have where you try to actually engage the feeling to stop what's happening in your nervous system. So they talk about diffusing it with thoughts, but then also running towards it. So when you feel it, you're supposed to feel the sensation and kind of say to your body, okay, what else you got? Bring it. Because that tells your nervous system, we're not scared of this, which then doesn't fuel a panic attack. So it's like you almost are looking for it. So the challenge is you spend a week looking for these things and being excited about them, but being excited is different than being anxious about them. So anyway, that's like a whole other thing if people want to check it out. But just that idea of what if I was somebody who didn't have to fix everything? Then I could have these feelings and just keep going with my life. So in the past couple of days, when I've had, nausea or stomach thing, and just think, there's that, and keep going. And it's kind of been nice. Like, for example, today I went to the bathroom and it wasn't great. And normally I'm like, oh, was it the gluten? Was it the dairy? And I'm going through the whole list. And I wonder, was it from 2 days before? And this time I just went to the bathroom. It wasn't great. And I thought, sometimes people go to the bathroom and it's not great. And I like thought no further on it and just went and ate whatever I wanted to eat. Not saying that's a fix for everybody, but I thought that was pretty groundbreaking.
I'm just trying to hold maybe I don't have to fix everything. Like, just, health, yes. Life, also a question mark. Parenting, huge thing where, like, there's been a big discussion in the house because, like, I have scar tissue inside my mouth from, like, biting my cheek from not trying to fix my teenager's problems.
Yeah.
That's I think that just kind of like permeates everything in your life. If you're someone who's like, I can fix this, I should fix this. It feels bad in my soul and heart not to jump in and fix this. Like,
exactly. Like letting go. I mean, it's so dumb. And this is one of those things like, if we were talking about this and some person came by and was like, you guys should just try letting go. We'd be like, I'm going to slit your throat. But, being in it, I was on this call the other day with like 15 other people, who have anxiety. And this lady was telling us this, and we were all just like, I mean, I know me on my computer, I was just almost in tears thinking, yeah, she has me pegged so well. And why do I feel like I have to fix it? And I know it's because I was telling a friend this weekend, I genuinely worry that there's something bigger going on or that I'm not going to make it very long. Like, so I know if this is what I feel like at 42, ain't no fucking way I'm around at 80, because that's a woman just shitting herself in public all day, every day. And I've like told my family, like, maybe just give me whatever potion to just make it so that I'm not living that life. But that's a real anxiety that I have about, I don't know what this looks like in 10 years and 20 years. So I don't know, maybe that gives me, I mean, it doesn't fix that worry, but maybe it makes it so like, if I'm going to die at age, let's just say, if I'm going to die at age 65 anyway, maybe I should not spend my life trying to fix it. Which is hard, because then you're also like, but what if we could fix it? Like, that, there's always the thing. I got an email this morning about like how to know if your thyroid's messed up, and I thought, I'm not going to look at that, because I'm going to try to just believe that I'm fine enough. Ugh, it's such a rub though. It's so finding that middle ground, because there's times where you're like, if I don't look for this, and maybe there is something that can take this misery away or that can make my life longer, and you won't know it if you don't go after it. So, I mean, all this is to say, like, I don't know.
Literally, this podcast is to say, I don't know. Like, just, if you're listening to this is not for, obviously we are not doctors, so this is not a podcast for, like, getting information. This is a podcast of, this is what we're all dealing with. Yeah. And don't feel like maybe you're so alone if you get to hear what other people are dealing with. I think it's really interesting, the idea of, like, instead of trying to fix your life, living your life.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, I think a lot of us have that mortality, you know, some more than others. Like, some of us definitely have a definite timeline. Others of us just are like, okay, you know, if this is middle age, I can't imagine how this is going to progress. So I think we all have, like, these alarm clocks going in our heads of, like, okay. And with all these crazy symptoms, there's also the fear of, well, what if I miss a big one? Like,
that's right. That's definitely my fear. Like, me and a couple of my other friends who have chronic illness, we always joke about, I think when I die, they're going to like open up my body, and they're just going to be like, oh my gosh, it was riddled with, you know, something. Because it's like, sometimes there's so many symptoms that it feels like there must be something bigger here. But like, I don't know. What if we wake up believing there's not something bigger? And that's been sort of in the last week of doing this anxiety boot camp thing. I just keep thinking, so many times when something happens, my brain immediately goes to, what is this? What does this mean? What's the bigger picture here? What do I need to be doing? And I'm going to try to limit that until I forget, and then have to pay $100 again for the boot camp and then relearn it. But that's kind of where my head is at right now, trying to deal with this, is by not trying to deal with it. Like, this isn't, like, managing my chronic illness is maybe something I'm just going to take a break from and see what happens.
That's a really cool experiment. I'm really curious how that goes for you. I've done it too. I've stepped out it took 30 years to get a diagnosis. Oh. So I would just step out of Western medicine for like years at a time and be like, I can't even see a doctor about this because I can't have another white coat anxiety attack with someone going, you're so healthy though. All your blood tests are negative. You're fine. You're just nervous. Like, I couldn't do it. So it was just, I get the, like, just stepping out and being like, I can't do this part of my life right now.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, this is reminding me of the, like, white coat, everything's fine. I have this funny story of when I was 18 years old and I was in college, I was starting to get some of these symptoms, and it was after my surgery. And so I went in for this colonoscopy. I don't know if you've ever had a colonoscopy, but like the prep part is pretty awful. You just poop all night long. And so you're wiping all night long. So I'm thinking, so I go to the thing, and then the worst part is getting in the car that morning to go to the colonoscopy place. And you're like, how do they, I'm going to like towels, diaper. It's just because you just don't know. So anyway, get the colonoscopy done. Afterwards, I'm hoping this lady says, you know, the thing we all want, which is, here's what we found and here's how to fix it, and it's easy, right? So I'm hoping that there's something. So she comes out, you know, I've been wiping all night long. So she comes out and she goes, you know what? we really didn't find anything except an irritated anus. And I was like, well, wait a minute. I took the prep, which gave me the irritated anus, so that then you could go in and tell me I have an irritated anus. Like, that to me was just the mind fuck sometimes, that all the testing is. And I thought, this is bullshit. I'm not doing this ever again. And so it wasn't, let's see, it wasn't until like 20 years later that I got another colonoscopy. So that doctor missed that there were resection lines around the parts that I was missing. So had she noticed that, maybe I would have at least known what was happening to me. But I will never forget the feeling of being told you have an irritated anus when, that's what the prep gave me. It just, yeah, you have to have see, this is the thing, is you can't have your bowels removed without your consent and also have doctors tell you have an irritated anus without like having it make you be really dark and strange and quirky. So am I thankful for it? Maybe. Maybe it's made me this unique, eccentric human being. I don't know. I'll never know.
We're just like, little creatures that are made up by our experiences and our biology. It's,
yeah.
So you've said a few times that this is something that happened without your consent. How did this all come about where you had to have this emergency surgery as a teenager?
Yeah, so I was 16 and all of a sudden I was getting these stomach aches and they wouldn't go away. And I remember lying on our dining room floor and just like writhing in pain. And I'd never had anything before that. Never had a broken arm. I didn't know anything. So my mom gave me milk of magnesia and I barfed it all up. And then it was like, finally, I think my mom realized that I was in such pain that we had to go to the ER. So in the ER, they did all sorts of really invasive tests, especially when you're 16 and you haven't ever had any health care really. And you're like, oh, they can like go through all those routes. So like I had a barium enema for the first time at 16, which I mean, this will come as not as a shock to anybody, but when I finally went back to school, I did a stand-up report on what it was like to get a barium enema in my English class. So I've always had this, like, if I'm going to go through this really awful, awkward thing, like, you're all going to hear about it sort of thing.
I'm just so impressed with you. Like, when I was 16, the idea of anyone finding out I was human at all, a pimple, like, that I went to the bath, like, that would have just horrified me. Like, to have any, like, human things showing, like, this whole idea of, like, the perfect...
Right, facade.
Yeah, right? That was so intense. Like, I'm so proud of you, like, the 16-year-old you, to be like, fuck that. This happened. It was traumatic. Y'all are going to find out about it. Like, that took me to, like, 40 to get there. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I've always been kind of like that, and I don't know what to attribute it to. But
general
so then
awesomeness?
And so I don't know. So so they finally figured out what it was. I went in for the surgery. I remember my mom and the doctor prayed over me, which I was like, well, that's not good news if somebody's praying over you again.
Especially a doctor.
All new things.
Like,
right?
Doctor.
Although I was like, thanks for the good vibes, in hindsight. But then they put you out. And I mean, when you're 16, you don't know what anesthesia is. So I'm just like, this is an amazing acid trip of some kind. So then they apparently how they said is they took all my intestines out and undid them and then put them back in. So, and while they were in there, this is another interesting piece. While they were in there, they decided to take my appendix. And the reason for it is I have my scar is like what would look like an appendectomy scar. So they said, if you're ever in an accident and like unconscious, the paramedics are going to assume that you don't have an appendix. And if your appendix is burst, they wouldn't know that. So we took it out. Like, what? But I'm 16, so I don't know. And my parents, that was back in the day where you didn't like Google things. And my parents were just kind of like, we love this doctor. He's a brilliant doctor. Well, it turns out that doctor didn't find a growth I had on my bowel that was causing it. So about a week after I'm home and recovering, I start to feel the pain again. And I'm like, oh no, go back in. The whole thing had gone back to itself. So they had to reopen me up and do it again. So then finally it worked. But when I say non-consensually, like, in this day and age with how I parent my kids, like I would be asking questions. I would be like, so what did you take out? Were those parts important? What did you do? What can we expect for her life to be like? How will she be affected? What does this look like in adulthood? And my parents, I mean, they were doing the best they could. And back then, I don't think you advocated like that. But they were just like, okay, great. And we never had a follow-up appointment. Like, it was just like, okay, everything's like fine. So that's why they didn't tell us what they did specifically, because my mom actually is super organized and takes tons of notes, and we've been through it and there's nothing about it. So I feel like I got burglarized in a way, you know?
I, I want to do an episode so much on medical PTSD because like we talk a lot about consent, especially now in this day and age. Thank God, I'm so happy for those discussions. But
Right.
also going into the amount of physicality, like you're talking about like orifices that you're like, hey, and I remember like when I was 16 and I almost died, and they were like, oh, we're gonna go and do we're gonna get the fluid right from your kidneys, so it's like up a urethra, and I'm like, I don't even know what that is,
Oh,
like,
right.
and it was
Yes.
all so traumatic, and we're almost exactly the same age, and it was like not a
Mm.
time where people were even asking like, oh, you're 16, maybe you've gone through some things. So like I had gone through a
Yes.
lot of things, so that was super traumatic. So
Oh,
like I really want like to have like a discussion about like this medical PTSD. I know doctors and nurses, especially in emergency situations, are doing the best they can, but there's got to be
yeah,
some also hand holding compassion that can happen as well, and better
exactly.
explanations. Like
Exactly. And that's why in some of the birth work that I did as a doula, it's, and part of the reason why we get burned out so easily is we see so much stuff that is not that is not consensual, that is not kind and compassionate. And to be the person watching it, and really my role as a doula was not to step in the middle of that. I tried to give comfort measures to my client as much as possible and ask really stupid questions to help her know that she had choices on things. But it's such a dance to do that. But I mean, the medical world, seeing how they go in and do things is just it's really really disheartening. So yeah, to be somebody who's been on the receiving end of that, and back then I didn't even know. I mean, like now when you're talking about it, I'm like, yeah, that's interesting. Like I had things that were inside me that I had never had inside me before. Like that's probably an interesting situation to have. And I remember being so nervous about, I remember one of my fears was being at Target or Mervyn's, places I shopped the most when I was young for clothes, and having the fire alarm go off and being naked in the dressing room. Like I remember feeling nervous about that, but then I went through this surgery and I was walking down the hall with a gown on with my ass hanging out and I didn't care. And so there's this initiation you go through when you go through this kind of thing that then nobody maybe talks about. I know my parents, like, we didn't have a talk about, like, the things you went through, no 16-year-old should have to go through. And again, it's not a dig on them, but it's just different times. So hopefully some of that stuff exists now for people to know they're not alone and to process some of that.
yeah, and also, we came of age before Google. Like when we were just like coming up through all this, AOL was a new thing, and we had dial-up
Yes.
internet. I know young people, you actually had to plug a phone line into your computer,
And
and
it
you
took
couldn't use
forever.
the phone. And you heard saying that if you are old enough to remember Skrillex, cats mating. That's basically what you would have to listen to when it was hooking up. So it wasn't really the ability to like really get all of this information like right away. There's like no, Mayo Clinic online, and it was,
Right.
you'd have to go to this, like, as I'm over in the Bay Area, you'd have to go to Stanford Medical Library and start researching.
Yes. Yeah, it wasn't as easy to access things, but in a way, it's like, was that better? Because we weren't obsessed. Like, I think about I mean, when I was in college and all those things, I had symptoms and issues, but I just didn't obsess about them. And maybe it was because back then I was only looking out for me. So I didn't have two kids to take care of and all of the weight of being a responsible adult. But I wonder, there's sometimes I wish we went back to the way that things were. But I know overall there's a lot of gains we've made, but it's like I feel like either way has its pros and its cons.
So speaking of responsible adulting, I get to hear a lot from people who are like, "Oh God, I don't know how you would do like all of this sick with kids." And my
Yeah.
answer is always, "I don't know how you do it with like I need like be that dog, cat, something to get me to leave the bed." And like I end up being able, like this
Yeah.
morning I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to cancel this interview, there's no way, my leg is hanging out of its socket. And I ended up
Aw.
doing grocery shopping and getting everything done and getting child
Wow.
off to school. It's like amazing like how much when like you had written in your show notes like it's amazing what you can actually get done when you have to. Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
no not if there are smaller people who are relying on you to get done. So how about you? Like, how do you feel like the whole like adulting kid responsibility thing weighs in on? Because I know it can also be a lot on the other side of I just can't. And yours are small, aren't they?
Mine are, I have a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Okay.
So, gosh, I mean, it's like it's both things. So on one hand, I think to myself, if I just had to focus on me, then I could do the things that calm the nervous system, that make the vagus nerve, more chill. I could do some of these things. I could get out and walk every day. I could have a meal, that wasn't all scrambled. Because for me, I think my whole life is trying to chill my vagus nerve. Um, so I think about how I'm so scattered and I have to show up for things. But then, like what you're saying is, when you have to do it, you have to do it. And so I appreciate it in that way. But I mean, it's tough going, and I'm really honest with people about it. So like this year, my daughter's in first grade, and I was talking to the teacher about some volunteer stuff that I might want to do, and she suggested something that was an every Friday homework thing. And so I said, I have some chronic health stuff, so I'm looking for something that's low obligation, low face time that I can just eject myself out of if I need to. Because I'm always the kind of person that would rather tell the people what's going on, and so that I don't let them down, so they know what to expect. So she was like, how about I have this one project, you can do it whenever you want, and it's once a month. And I was like, great.
That one.
So yeah, I'll take that one. And part of me is like, why am I even volunteering anyway? But I do like to get like my face in the class and just kind of like see who's who and all that kind of stuff. So, but I mean, it's it's really fucking hard to parent with this. And I think motherhood in general is really, really tricky, especially modern motherhood and all of the pressures that we have. I mean, if you want to hear about that, you can check out my podcast, Adult Conversation, which is just basically all about the realities of that. But then, sometimes I think maybe this isn't that hard, but I just have a chronic illness that makes it hard. So I had written an article about chronic illness, and one of the things I talk about that is I set my life up so that I can eject it at any moment, so that my husband can be the closer on everything. So I Christmas shop in October and a little bit in November. I usually have that so that in case I get, like last Thanksgiving, I got E. coli, which was super fun, right? So, and then the Christmas before, I think I had shingles. And there's always a kidney stone, just like, I'm going to drop. So it's like, I'm just walking around like, I don't know when or what is going to take me out. So I have to be very planner. Otherwise, things won't happen. And I definitely am not the kind of person that everything has to be magic. And I tell my kids, I mean, my kids know about my stuff, and my son is super compassionate. He's the 12-year-old. He'll do anything for me. And he's always like, Mom, is your stomach okay? Or if we leave to go to the zoo or something, and he can just like see on my face, he's like, is your stomach okay? Should we cancel this? Like, my kids are so compassionate about it because, again, I'm completely honest with them about it. But does that make me feel good? No. Is that the kind of mom I thought I would be? No. Did I think I would have to cancel plans because I feel like I'm going to shit my pants while we're there? No. But what else can I do? But do my best. And so if that's being honest with them about it, if that's setting up my life in certain ways, then that's what I do. But I mean, I talk about this too in that article, that I feel bad for my husband is who I really feel bad for, because he didn't know he was signing up for this. And I didn't know I was signing up for this either. When we got married, I didn't know that this is what this was going to be like as it's gotten worse over the years. But I just sometimes like fantasize him marrying some just amazing strapping immune system woman who never needs a bathroom, and they just travel the world together, and he's so happy. I feel like you deserve that. And it's not from him. I mean, he's so supportive and he would take me anyway, but it's hard to not sometimes feel like, broken, or like, gosh, wouldn't this just be better for everybody if I didn't have these issues? And then, you have to realize, well, like, there's a lot of ways that this could be worse. So it's trying to do the best and be honest, but also, have to take a break when I have to take a break, which when they're little, like that was the hardest for me. Age, maybe a year to 4 years is nearly impossible for me. And I don't know if it's my personality or chronic illness or both, but that's when you can't rationalize with people. And so you can tell them I don't feel well, and they like hit you in the face with a Thomas train. So like, it just sucks for me. So, oh, did you just like pull something out?
Yes. We're gonna ignore it though.
We are. Okay. Yeah, we are not going to try to fix it, right?
We're just gonna let that arm just hang out of its socket. We can just just be there.
Oh,
No, I call those years the maximum mobility, minimum common sense years. And it's like they're constantly
yes.
trying to kill themselves. Like they are just like these little balls of like enthusiastic suicide where they are throwing themselves at moving cars, big
Yes.
dogs. And you're like, I can't even stand up from the sand pit right now. Can you stop trying to eat the dog poop? Like, just stop.
Yes. I don't
I'm
understand. I don't like to me the craziest thing is somebody who's so tired who won't sleep. Like I can't even wrap my head around that. I still and I've been through it twice, but I do not understand. And like people who don't eat, like who just are starving, you can tell they're cranky and then they will not eat the food. I have I do not have a
I'm
lot of
sorry, like
patience.
my parenting PTSD is coming back. I'm starting to like have panic attacks. No, like
Yeah.
really, like it's when my son was, I was pretty much on my own, and I was sick, and I was going to graduate school, and he was 7 months old, and it was like, and we
Oh
didn't have
my
a
God.
diagnosis. We were just told that I had fibromyalgia, and anyone with fibromyalgia, I'm sorry, I put the just in front of that. If fibromyalgia sucks, it bites. Unfortunately, it's the least of what I have right now. So it was just like, and it also doesn't help you if you're dislocating and you don't know you're dislocating. And so like, yeah,
Yeah.
being there alone with this really awesome kid, but I don't have the brain for staying at home. I'm not a stay-at-home mom type. I'm too snarky. I'm too bitchy, and
Yeah.
I'm too ADD. So rolling a ball back and forth for an hour was like a level of emotional torture I have yet to experience since. And
I'm with you. I'm
right,
with you. I didn't know that. Like, so, you have these ideals about who you'll be, and I thought, oh, I want to be home with my kids. I want to raise them. That seems like the right thing to do. So I always joke that I think I was a working mom, that I pushed myself into being a stay-at-home mom and then like resisted it. But it's like it's that thing of parenting where the thing you want to do and the thing that you do sometimes are two different things.
oh my god, yes. And like seriously, just like a quick sidebar here. If you are a stay-at-home mom and that is your jam, I bow down to you. You are an awesome human
Yes.
being. If you
Yes.
are a working mom and that's your jam, awesome human being. Like this is,
Totally.
I am all for choice and decisions. Like my cousin is like the best mother I've ever met in my life, and she loves staying at home with her kids, and she is awesome at it. That's her thing,
Yeah.
and that's great. But when you add the sick mom thing into all of this, it
Mm.
just takes on a different shade because it's like, well, I'm home, so I guess
Yes.
I'm home, but I can't do all the cool mom things that everyone else is doing. I can't get it together to get crafts. I can't go make the cute little sandwiches I see on Pinterest. I can't, like,
See,
my,
that's all bullshit anyway. I
right?
mean, for
Yeah.
the people out there who make that,
Fuck
like,
Pinterest
like,
sometimes.
good for
I'm
you.
obsessed, but fuck Pinterest. Yeah.
Pinterest has ruined motherhood. Do you realize this? Pinterest is part of the reason that we're all overwhelmed because people are trying to make lunches that they can take pictures of to post on pages. This is the thing like our parents didn't have to deal with. Our moms never had to deal with. They put a fucking Lunchable in and they called it a day and a squeeze it and you didn't
Oh my
and you
god,
were
I remember
happy. Everybody was
Squeeze-Its.
happy.
I remember Squeeze-Its.
Oh, they were so good, weren't they? The
The little
orange
twist
squeezes.
top thing, or the
Yes.
Capri Suns where you always impaled the whole thing. Like you could never get a
Yeah,
straw into a Capri Sun, just like a little
exactly.
bit. So much fun talking to someone my own age. I appreciate this.
And fruit by the foot, do you know? I mean, other people out there are probably like, well, yeah, fruit by the foot's still around. I didn't know this, but I was at my friend's house the other day. Fruit by the foot still exists.
Mhm.
That shit's so good. So this is partially like with my health stuff. I ate the worst food because that generation, they thought like you could just microwave everything. I ate microwave French fries. Do you remember that with like the silver panel that you put in the microwave to crisp them?
Okay,
There were
here, let
so
me
many
give a
things we ate that were
quick
bad.
little aside here for everyone who's like, of course your generation is sick. You all ate absolute crap. All right, so I was raised by hippies, and I
Oh, you
do
were
mean
wheat germ? Were you
hippies.
eating wheat germ while I was eating microwave fries?
Cashew cereal because Cheerios had too much sugar, so I lived on rabbit food. So just all of y'all who think that we just ate shit and we were microwaved to hell and that's why we're like this, no, I am really sick and I was like raised. I'm so lucky my name is not like, yeah, we'll just let
Moon,
you.
star, sunshine face.
Might have been good. I could have dealt with that, but like, and I actually got to see the list of names that my parents came up with. Like, my dad actually was at Woodstock. Like,
Oh my God, amazing.
right? He actually was there. There was
Yeah.
proof. He was there. My mom was a folk singer and is an amazing singer. But yeah, no, I was raised on health food all the way through. It is
See, so this
not
is
the
interesting
answer.
because I'll never know, or like, because of that growth on my bowel, I'll never know where it came from. So I'll never know. So it's making me feel like, well, maybe that wasn't that. But I grew up with so much of that kind of food and loved it. So then being a parent today where we like know better is so hard because my mom, I just look at my mom, I'm like, you don't know how easy you had it. You didn't know that food was, a certain way, but like your parents obviously did. But that part in itself, the whole food thing is a trip. Like the food for myself with all my issues around it, with what it's going to do to me is hard enough. But then like kids. So
Hmm.
like, okay, so then for making a meal, so when I make a meal for my family, my husband's a vegetarian. I am not. My son now, who's 12, will eat pretty much whatever, which is great, but he wasn't like always like that. And my daughter basically eats salmon, fried rice, and artichokes. That's like it. She won't eat quesadillas, mac and cheese, pizza. It's so weird. So like the stress of planning a meal and making a meal that all of us can eat, and me, I'm always like not doing dairy, not doing gluten. Like I'm a mess. So I, all of those meal plans that come around like Blue Apron, I'm like, you could not even handle us. Like, we need a meal planning that's just like, y'all got some fucked up eating. Like, we will hit all of it. So whenever that comes out, sign me up. I'll pay whatever it takes that you put in like a profile for each person and their personality defects and what
So
they're
I think
currently
you just
eating.
started a business.
I
I
think I
really feel like
did.
you just started a business. Like that would actually be a thing people would sign up for. And then if you could add, it's like I am anyone who listens, I'm political. Go figure.
Yeah.
So it's also like all this. Okay, now was this killed humanely? Did it live humanely? Where did it come from? Am I for crying out loud? I've got to stop moving. Did it come from another country where it had to be shipped in? Am I supporting bad labor practices? Am I supporting bad environmental practices? Like I am having nervous breakdowns in aisles, like going,
I was
but
going to say, just imagining, when we look at the back of something and we're reading, like, okay, well, what's the sugar content? But is it the good kind of sugar? Because there's various kinds. But with that oil, that's a different name for that. And then, yeah, and you haven't even talked about the labor practice. You haven't even gotten to the labor practices. There was an app. I don't know if it's still around, but like 2 or 3 years ago, there was an app where you could scan the barcode and it will tell you who they had given money to politically. And I'm like, we've jumped the shark, even
I
though I fully
can't.
support that because I don't want to
Yes.
give money to assholes. I'm like, then you buy one product and it takes you 5 minutes to like know the morals of that product. It's
I,
too much.
it is like I do my best to be like, okay, this is not something I am willing to put my money on and support, but oh my god. So okay, last night, just
Yeah.
super feminist. Obviously, my husband
Yeah.
was like, "You're having an anxiety attack. We should just watch comedians. Like, stop looking at the news. You've got to stop looking at Twitter now. Now, stop. Put it down. Let's watch comedians." So he puts on one male comedian after another. Where I just keep looking at him like, I don't want to hear another "my wife is not my favorite person" joke. This isn't
Oh,
funny. And then
right.
I'm
Ugh.
like, can we try a woman comedian? Can we try that? And the first comedian said, I don't want kids because I don't want to be a mom. It's not that I don't want kids. I just don't want to be a mom. I could be a dad. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, that's sexist. But
I
I
want to be the
can
dad.
I can promise you, as involved, my husband is the most involved father I've ever seen in my life. It is not even close to what I would have to hit to be considered a good mother.
Oh, at 100%. I always say that. I'm looking forward to being a grandparent because I think it's similar to the dad role. But yeah, I want to be the dad. It's like all the fun without all of the pesky micromanaging of, food and
Yeah, he's
ingredients
never
and
looked at the ingredients and gone, maybe this contributes to ADD. Maybe we shouldn't give this to a child who might have
yeah.
ADD. Should we discuss whether we even get diagnoses for ADD? What about the
Ugh,
IEP plans? How do we make sure they eat the right food at school to make sure we don't have any issues? Not once. And he's a very involved
yes.
person. Has this ever been in his like sphere of, and he's the
Totally.
healthy one. And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like,
There's so much
too
behind
sick
that.
for
I don't
this.
know if you listened to my podcast episode with Darcy. She wrote a book called Mothers, Fathers, and the Myth of Equal Partnership. And so it was like you read it and you're like, this is amazing. It's research about why men don't show up equally in the parenting partnership. And it will blow your mind. When I read it, I was like, there are so many things in here that I thought I was just crazy, but there's actual scientific research that backs up the way that this happens or how I'm seeing, other men do these things. It will blow your mind. So, her book, the name of it is All the Rage: Mothers, Fathers, and the Myth of Equal Partnership. And I did a podcast where I interviewed her, and it was like my favorite thing ever because it had me so fired up. And I got so much feedback. People are like, I think this book saved my marriage. Like literally saved my marriage.
Yeah,
So
and I don't think it's ever a thing. Like my husband would do anything to make my life easier.
mine too.
But
Yeah.
the thing is like someone wrote this, and I think a lot of it goes back to when we were talking about fix it, because I think that
Yeah.
like anyone who has female appearance, like appears female, like there's this expectation that you will do everything you can to make everyone in the room comfortable and
Yeah.
to make everything fixable. And that same thing is not put on to anyone who presents as male. And so
Right.
someone had like written this thing to her husband about like like managing project manager is a job. They don't do the job. So if I have to project manage and tell you to clean things, put stuff away, get these things from the grocery store, get these specific things from the grocery store, I am project managing, and I can't then also take the time to do these other things. Like just the idea that like telling people what they need to do is a job in and of itself has been
Exactly.
like, and then I realized I'm cruise directing my house, where it's like I'm also the entertainment director. I am the one who makes sure that
Yes.
everyone's happy, that we have good things that we can do together as a family to bond as a family. Like that's also the job. And it's like that's a lot of jobs for a sick person. Like that's a lot of jobs for any person.
Exactly. And I mean, not to come back to the idea of letting go, but at some point, some of those things, it's like and that's kind of with chronic illness. I feel like I have learned I have to let go on things. Like it's not going to look a certain way, or I can't hit all of the marks. But it's this weird thing with parenting and being raised as a woman. One of the things that Darcy talks about in the book that just I was like, this is so true. She was talking about how her husband was going to take their girls on a trip, and so he says something to her. He texts her and is like, "Hey, I'm gonna, the girls and I are leaving. Maybe could you put some things out or remind me of things that I should pack for them." And she was like, well, I mean, you could probably think of the things, right? So this is what you're talking about, like the managing of the things. And so she says something, she goes, I just felt like such an asshole. Like what? I can't just help him with those few things. And so she was trying to get him to do the packing, but then he was asking her questions about what to pack. So basically she was going to end up doing the packing anyway. And she found herself at the end of it, finally just packing for him, because she's like, I don't want to be a naggy wife that like just won't help him. But she said, isn't it funny that when he takes the girls away, I feel like I should, how did she say it? The whole point of it was that no matter how it was, she felt like she should do the packing. Like I'm getting it kind of wrong, but there was something about it that just so resonated. It was like she should pack because he's taking them, which is a quote unquote favor to her. But then also she should pack because she's just the mom and the mom does that. Like there's no getting out of it. Like it always seems like we're the one who needs to do the job no matter what. And so her thing was like, I stopped doing the things. And I've since interviewed another mom, Marissa, that was my last episode, about all the things that she doesn't do. She doesn't do his laundry anymore. And these are not, and they all say, this is not as a fuck you to him. This is as a self-preservation to me, which is why would I do your laundry? Why can't you do your laundry? And all these other things that like my friend Marissa's like, dinner's a mystery every night. Like we both, like I come in and I don't have it planned. So it's like, what are we doing for dinner? So I do think there is a certain level of those of us that are warriors and doers and fighters and fixers and type A's and all of that, where we have to not do the thing because then the thing won't be done. But then you have to ask yourself, well, what's the big deal if that doesn't get done?
What if we don't have the full meal list that we then like have our Instapot and we do all the stuff and everyone has their appropriate meal that they wanted and like what if we don't? Like that goes back to what you were talking about the like maybe it just doesn't have to. Maybe we don't have to fix everything. Maybe we just let it just be imperfect. As I feel like there's this like optimization thing that we're always trying to optimize our time, optimize our families, optimize the experience of childhood for our kids. And it's like, childhood for a lot of kids pretty much just rocks without us stepping in and having the perfect princess or dragon or, like paper mache birthday party, like where, like the Pinterest birthday party. Sorry, can you tell I've been on Pinterest too much?
You need an intervention.
Right?
You need Pinterest removed from your life. Because I tell you, that is part of the problem. It's the perfect facade. And that is so much of it, which is this perfect facade. And like, think about when we grew up. I mean, it wasn't perfect. And there were definitely like some big things that, could have been done differently that would have been helpful. But all of the independence that we got and all of that. And so I try to do that with my kids. Like I taught my 12-year-old to do his own laundry. And some of it is self-preservation, which is I may not be feeling well. And sometimes I don't want to do this. But I think it makes them stronger and better in the long run to teach them this stuff and to not just make every single thing perfect. Like the things I want to make perfect, which still you can't make perfect, are the emotional needs.
Yeah.
Like I always want to be there to have their emotional needs met, but all this other stupid shit, I'm not going to waste my time on that.
And there's
'Cause it
so
doesn't
much
matter.
like parenting from bed you can do that are the emotional moments and things. But you know, like what pisses me
Yeah.
off so fucking much is watching people get mad at millennials. And it makes me rage because I'm like, first off, who the fuck raised them?
Yeah.
So if you're mad that people aren't adulting who are adult, yeah, need to look over at like who made everything, who made the road ready for the kid instead of the kid ready for the road. So first
Exactly.
off, number one, that's a big thing, and number two is like I still feel like this all these magazines and Pinterest and all these things on how we're supposed to do all these perfect things and perfect life for the kids. We are infantilizing children all the way through teenagers and then being shocked that they can't do anything for themselves. They can't do their laundry. They can't make food. It's like, oh my God, what were you doing? It's like, no, what were you doing that you were like holding this accountable that they should get
Yes.
stuff done? Like by the time they're 4, they can actually make a basic lunch. Like they can do peanut
Yes.
butter on bread. That's possible. You know, like it
Totally.
won't look perfect, but it could get done.
Yes, and too, exploring this idea of what wounds are we parenting from. So I say this
Mm.
because I know my husband has his own sort of wound that he sometimes parents from that's like a beautiful thing because he didn't have a father who was there and sane and safe. So for our kids, it's like I just know subconsciously that's always what he's doing. But the flip side of that is he wants to do everything for them. And I grew up as a latchkey kid who was like, doing my own stuff from such a young age that I can't imagine. Like, I want my kids to be able to do the things that I did, where I came home from school alone every day and just made my life happen. I mean, my parents didn't do homework with me. My mom didn't really cook that much. So I remember liking cooking, like all of these things. So I think that that's a thing too, is to ask yourself some of the question of, what might be the wound that I'm parenting from, that I'm overdoing it, that is not helping my child. And I think that, like what you're talking about, is treating them like children and wanting to do everything for them because we want them to know that they're loved. Like I think we sometimes go overboard on that. You can have your kids be loved, but also know how to do their laundry.
Yeah, that's the thing is like we need to maybe redefine what love and taking care of someone actually looks like. And fostering independence can be an act of love. Like how could
Exactly.
they possibly learn if they like to make food unless they try? Like
Exactly. My son this morning, he's 12, and he was like, "Oh, mom, will you? I'm gonna go upstairs and brush my teeth. Will you get my lunch started?" And I do, and I had just helped him with this project or whatever. So it's not like I'm like, "You're on your own for everything, buddy." But I said, you know how to pull, the stuff out of the fridge the same as I do.
mhm.
So I said, go brush your teeth and then come back down and put it together. So, but I know if you have this subconscious wound that you want your kid to think that they can depend on you, you go, oh yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So it's like it really is about checking our own shit sometimes before making those parenting decisions. But again, we do our best and we have our wounds, and we're gonna fuck our kids up in a way that we don't even know. One of my best friends, who's 65, who has 7 kids and tons of grandkids, is like, oh, Brandy, the best part about parenthood is you fuck your kids up and it's in the way you didn't even see coming. So she's like, you do all these things to not mess them up at all, but then when they're older, they tell you something and you're like, that wasn't even on my radar. So she's like, so just let it go. You're gonna fuck them up, and just get excited for when you learn about which way it was. So I was
So
like, that's nice.
my kid
Relieving.
my kid just hit adulthood, which
Oh,
is shocking to me, but he's one of my favorite humans of all time. Still one of my favorite people to hang out with. He's awesome, but he said something to me that really hit hard, which was he was like, "I wish that you'd have been more of not focused. What's the word I'm looking for? Not strict, but like maybe strict, like more like these are the rules. And I'm not that. I was raised by hippies. I think this is pretty strict for me. So I don't know. I'm trying here. But I wasn't that mom. And I was like, God, I'm sorry. I guess that might have been a little bit more helpful for you to have things really defined. He goes, yeah, but if you had, that probably wouldn't have been what I needed. It was like, that's fair, because I feel like a lot of like where I fucked up in parenting is number one, being exhausted and not being consistent, because consistency makes things easier. But if you're too sick to remember what you said, you're fucked. There's nothing you can do about it. And then the other thing was trying to parent from what I needed when I was growing up and being like, I didn't get this, I needed this, so I'm gonna give it to you. And they're like, yeah, I don't need that at all. That hurts. So it's like, wow, this is all, my mom took care of her aunt, and she was one of my favorite humans. And after she died, or when she was dying, she told my mom, you're going to make mistakes and I'm going to forgive you. And that has to be like the most beautiful statement I can think of for any relationship at all. Like parent to child, parents to each other. Like, I also have an ex-husband, so, to like mixed family, just like, you're gonna make mistakes, we're gonna forgive each other. That's how this has to go if we're going to keep moving forward together.
That's exactly right. And like you said, there's always, I feel like sometimes we're screwed either way, because like you said, had you been a strict parent, then he might have been like, Mom, he might have come to you and said, Mom, I just wish you weren't as strict. Yeah. And then you wouldn't have known, like, well, if I did it the other way, you come to me the other way. So it's like, I think the thing to accept is they're going to come to us about something. And
we can just be understanding and go, yeah, sorry that didn't work out that way. Love you.
Yes.
I hope you just know you're loved. Or
yeah, I know. Right. Yes.
All right, we hit an hour, and I will kidnap you for the rest of the day. I know, and there's so much else I want to talk to you about. So I have stuff to say real quick for everyone, which is you have to listen to her podcast. Oh my God, it is one of my favorite. I will be obsessing. It's Adult Conversations. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Adult Conversation. Yeah, and I think on the thing it's actually Adult Conversation Parenting Podcast.
Yeah, that's where I was getting confused. But if you go to our show notes on invisiblenotbroken.com, it's the first thing you'll find. So you can just click on it and just go down a rabbit hole. I know I will be doing that for the rest of today. So please head on over, listen to Brandy's podcast. I'm hoping I can convince her to come back on a more regular basis.
Yes,
to do more panels, because you have so many things you're an expert in that I think a lot of us are struggling with. So I hope we can pick your brain more often.
Oh, thank you. This is awesome. Honestly, coming on this, I don't talk about this in this way. I talk about a lot of parenting and birthy stuff. But I'm like, when I was like, wow, and even filling out your form, I was like, oh my gosh, I get to talk about this side of myself. I never really get to talk about it in this way. So thank you for the opportunity for me to get to like process through this.
Oh God, I'm so happy that you were able to feel that way about it. Because there's so much that we kind of like put off to the side as being sick, or as being wives, or as being friends, or as being like parents. Like there's so much facets that get ignored. So I'm really glad you took the time to write out those are our show notes. So if you go over to the website, again, you get to read through all Brandy's answers. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I hope we get to see you again soon.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Kindest thing you can do is still go over to Apple Podcast. I think that still exists. I think iTunes is what went away. Hopefully I got that right. Leave stars, leave reviews. Yes, I do read all the reviews. And I do take them to heart, but not too much. I still am me. There's not much I can do about that. So if you, that's still the best place to leave reviews. And also we have a blog, so please feel free to go over there and check that out. Until next week, be kind, be gentle, and be a badass.